The straw on the floor of the black cell reeked of urine and old hay, a sour stench that clung to Tyrion Lannister's beard as though determined to leave with him even after the chains fell away. "One link at a time," metal whispered in Varys' careful hands, and the spider's pale, powdered face shone with sweat in the glow of a single tallow candle. Tyrion wriggled his numb wrists, testing freedom. He ought to have felt elation, perhaps gratitude. Instead, he tasted the coppery tang of dread where the back of his tongue met his throat. Freedom was never free in King's Landing, and Varys rarely untied a knot without fastening another. "Your boat," Tyrion rasped, voice rough from weeks of damp stone and colder memories. "Waiting," Varys said. His whisper flitted like a moth in the stale air. "But there is a complication, better called an opportunity, if you dare risk a different path." Complication. Opportunity. Two sides of the same gilded coin. Tyrion flexed aching fingers. "I just killed the woman I loved," he said, though love felt unsuitably bright in the darkness. "Risk feels like an old friend." Varys studied him. "You may imagine you have nothing left to lose, my lord, but the game seldom permits such clean accounts. I ask only that you listen before you step into the crate I prepared. You will find it more spacious than the last." Tyrion's laugh rattled like gravel in a tin cup. Shay's face hovered behind his eyes, soft and accusing. "Speak, eunuch, before I drown in nostalgia." The candle trembled as Varys leaned closer. "Lord Tywin has discovered your escape." Tyrion's blood chilled. "Has he now? That must have ruined his evening." "He seeks parley, not retribution. He claims—" Varys paused, and for once the master of whisperers seemed almost uncertain, "that he wishes to prevent catastrophe. A catastrophe with wings and 3 heads. Dragons." The word passed silently between them like a dark comet. Tyrion snorted. "My father would rather drink horse dung than parley with the son he plans to strangle. Did you bribe his steward to say so?" "No bribe," Varys murmured. "An arrangement. I will lead you to him through secret ways that avoid the stone guard. He waits alone in Maegor's holdfast." "A trap," Tyrion said. "Possibly. If so, I will die before you do. The guards think I am ferrying you offshore already." "Now well..." Tyrion weighed the candle's meager flame against the abyss of possibilities. Tywin, still alive, still looming, offered a chance at vengeance or at something stranger. A crippled, fugitive dwarf had no future in Pentos, beyond another cage. "Very well," he said, tasting ash. "Lead on." They slipped through oubliettes that smelled of rot and salt. The stone beneath Tyrion's bare feet grew warmer as they climbed. He thought of every insult his father had ever breathed. Monster, cunning shame shape, and found himself rehearsing retorts like a nervous jester. But the crossbow he expected to carry was absent. Varys had removed it from the Hans apartment after Shay's body cooled. Good, Tyrion decided. Tywin deserved to witness the disappointment in his son's eyes more than an arrow in his gut. A final iron door yawned open. Golden candelabra painted shifting light on carved lions. The chamber stank of fresh ink and the faint perfume of crushed lilies from a vase long forgotten. Tywin Lannister stood at the center, neither armor-clad nor seated in judgment. He wore a plain wool doublet of Lannister red, hands clasped behind his back, chin high as a banner. Candlelight caught the silver in his whiskers, turning father into statue. "Leave us," Tywin said without turning. Varys bowed deeper than the floor. "Ace the hand commands." His slippers whispered away. The iron door sealed with a groan, leaving father and son inside a room thick with the hush of departed watchers. Tywin faced Tyrion at last. "You look like death dug up for questioning." Tyrion dipped an exaggerated bow. "And you, father, glow like a mausoleum lantern. We've always complemented each other in color scheme." A muscle in Tywin's cheek twitched. "Your wit remains undimmed. I suppose I should be grateful, given what I require." Tyrion limped to the ornate table, fingers brushing maps spread beneath glass spheres to hold corners flat. Dorn Dutch. The Stormlands. Across the narrow sea, a parchment dragon sketched in red ink loomed over Moraine's tiny tower. "You require my wit to kill a girl with actual dragons." "To defeat," Tywin corrected. Not necessarily kill. He drew closer. Scent of pine, soap-curdling Tyrion's memories of cell mold. I will not see Westeros reduced to ash. The realm endured Aerys's madness. It will not survive his daughter's monsters. Tyrion eyed the map. Versailles still sits queen. Tommen wears a crown too large for his little brow. The Tyrells hold your coffers upright. You fear one girl across the sea more than the vipers inside your bedchamber? Then no three. I fear whomever the realm fears, Tywin said, voice soft as boiled silk. Reports say her dragons now breathe on command. Ships vanish in the Gulf of Grief. Merchants speak of scales like black iron. When she sails, and she will sail, common folk will remember wildfire burning the sept and assume the gods send punishment anew. Panic is treason's midwife. And what am I in this birthing metaphor? The midwife's dwarf assistant, Tyrion asked. Tywin's pale green eyes fixed him, unblinking. You are the son who writes with numbers. Who reads histories of Valyria in the library while horrors sleep beside him. You understand dragons in ways our maesters have forgotten. I need your counsel, even your cynicism. I do not need your corpse. They stood in silence while the candles hissed. Tyrion waited for condemnation of Shay, for some sneer about fathers and crossbows. It never came. Instead, Tywin traced a finger along a supply route, marked in crimson toward Lannisport. I will be dead within a decade, he said, matter of fact. Jaime has thrown away Casterly Rock for white cloth. Cersei drowns in envy as surely as Robert drowned in wine. You remain my last stone on the board with sense enough to see 3 moves ahead. A pause as thin as parchment. Serve the family. Serve the realm. I will absolve your treason. Tyrion caught the glint of genuine urgency in those iron eyes, something rawer than fear and older than pride. What of my wife, he asked, though the bitter taste of Sansa's name felt strange on his tongue after so long. She is safe in the Vale, Tywin said. Littlefinger keeps her like a bauble he hopes to ransom. She will remain unharmed so long as our interests align. Bendawai. Another debt, Tyrion thought. Another silent chain. Forgive me if I'm unmoved by such tender mercy. Tywin made a curt gesture, dismissing moral theatrics. Listen and decide. I intend to send an envoy across the sea, a cunning, disarming voice, to join Daenerys Targaryen's camp in Meereen, to learn her weaknesses, to maneuver her hostiles against one another from within. You are uniquely suited. Tyrion barked a laugh. You would gift her the very dwarf she suspects murdered her niece and nephew's father? She will not know you as a Lannister. We will forge a new mantle. The world is vast, and names shift on foreign winds. A merchant of letters, a broker of secrets, a man of lists perhaps. Tyrion imagined the hot sun above Meereen's walls, the reek of corpses on crosses. He imagined dragons wheeling overhead, their shadows bigger than the slums below. To see a dragon, truly see one, had haunted his boyhood like a half-remembered melody. You would have me betray her after I stand beneath her wings? Observe, influence. And when the moment ripens, slice a single tendon so the beast collapses. Tywin lifted the red-ink dragon token and set it over Blackwater Bay. The realm cannot abide dragonfire. We will strike first, through trade embargoes, insurgents, clever sabotage. If she dies along the way, it will be war's grim arithmetic. Tyrion sank onto a laden chair. Wood creaked, echoing his hollow chest. I once freed 8,000 unsullied with a whisper in Astapor, he said. Half to himself, remembering long nights of wine-soaked reading. Or so the storyteller claimed. But he did not mention the screams. Tywin circled behind him like a predatory cat, hands clasped. Serve me in this, and I swear you may carve out a destiny Randall Tarley's prattling maesters cannot blot from the ledgers. Casterly Rock restored to you. A seat on the small council. Perhaps even, his breath hovered over Tyrion's hair, permission to live without fear of my noose. The tyrant granting mercy? Tyrion felt dizziness, unsure if from hunger or the wobble in the world. Would you have granted such largesse had I not already paid in gold and blood? I grant nothing, Tywin said. I exchange. Very well, let us bargain. Tyrion's gaze drifted to the window. A slice of black sky peppered with embers of distant torches. Somewhere the bells of Visenius Hill tolled midnight. First condition. When I leave these walls, it will be as a free lord, not cargo in a crate. Second, Podrick Payne comes with me. The boy deserves better than execution for loyalty. Nandir. He will ride at your side, Tywin conceded. No hesitation. Third, Tyrion pressed on, emboldened. All charges against me for the death of Joffrey Baratheon are voided by royal decree, signed by my father and the king. You killed neither king nor sire. Tywin's words were flat as hammered steel. We will announce as much. Shay's ghost stirred, but Tyrion kept his face still. Fourth, Jaime's place remains secure in the Kingsguard, without interference from you or Cersei. Tywin's jaw worked. If Jaime chooses to continue wearing white, that is his dishonor to endure. I will not meddle. A generous lie, Tyrion said, but nodded. Finally, when I request ships, gold, or ravens while abroad, I receive them. Within reason. Reason as judged by me. Tyrion offered his smallest finger like a Braavosi sellsword, making blood oath. Deal. Tywin did not smile. Tywin never smiled when sincerity mattered. He laid his larger hand over Tyrion's. Skin met skin, lion to lion. The gesture felt colder than chains. Deal, he said. They burned the maps and scattered the ashes into the courtyard fountain before dawn. Cersei must see nothing. Varys Rig emerged, robed now in dove gray. To arrange forged seals and a seaworthy cog, manned by captains loyal to coin, not crown. Podrick, bruised but breathing, arrived with a knotted sack of coin and cheeks red from disbelief. Tyrion embraced the boy awkwardly, promising him meat pies on the voyage. By sunrise, the dwarf stood at the rail of the Merling King, wind whipping hair he hadn't washed in moons. King's Landing spires retreated like dagger points shrinking on the horizon. He half expected wildfire to bloom behind them. Cersei's wrath ignited. But no green blossom came. Perhaps father had muzzled her, or perhaps fate still sharpened its shears. Below deck in the cramped cabin, Tyrion unrolled the scrolls Tywin provided. Coded ledgers revealing agents hidden in Volantis, Qohor, and Meereen itself. Each alias was a thread of the spiderweb his father meant to cast across Essos. Tyrion sipped watered wine and traced each line, imagining the men and women behind false names and blank eyes. Spies died quickly in a city of dragons, but gold coaxed even zealots. Podrick knocked timidly. "Aim, Lord? The captain says we'll make mire by 7 days if the wind holds." "Tell him the wind obeys only drunks and poets," Tyrion replied, then softened. "Come in, Pod. Sit. Learn the first rule of espionage. Never gamble more than you can afford to lose." He pushed a purse of silver across the table. "For when we dock." Pod's wide eyes shimmered in the lamplight. "Thank you, sir, Lord. Is it true we're going to see dragons?" "None." "God's willing," Tyrion said, though he was less certain which gods favored dwarfs among monsters. As Pod left, Tyrion's gaze settled on the sealed wax Tywin had pressed into his palm before departure. To be opened only once east of the Rhoyne. He resisted the urge to break it now. Some secrets gained flavor when aged in transit. Days became a blurred ribbon of spray and gull cry. Tyrion taught Podrick Sivas, losing on purpose until the squire's brow furrowed with suspicion. At night he climbed topside, listening to masts groan like elderly men, and wondered if Shay's soul drifted somewhere overhead, too light for sea air. He spoke her name only once, whisper carried away by waves. Myr greeted them with ochre towers and canals choked by barges. Perfumed courtesans with jeweled masks strolled the quays, their laughter a breeze of jasmine. Tyrion wore a dark hood sewn with tiny cork weights to change his posture. He became Allo Spicer, a Lysine bookmaker fleeing creditors. Podrick transformed into his mute nephew, Pike. They lodged above a tavern where ceiling beams dripped ale and secrets. On the third evening, a sell-sale named Yandri Sand brought word from the Shadow Market. volcanic whispers that a fleet of iron-borne longships had sacked a slave port near Astapor. Banners bearing a pale squid and a bleeding eye. Euron Greyjoy, Crozet himself, hoarded hostages and rumored dragon eggs. Tyrion's mind raced. If Euron courted Daenerys with stolen tribute, he could elbow aside any alliance the Lannisters constructed. Yet Tywin had mentioned a quiet accord with Victarion Greyjoy, Euron's hounded brother, to ferry scorpions and wildfire to Slaver's Bay. Complications grew like weeds. Before dawn, Tyrion cracked Tywin's wax seal beneath flickering lamplight. The parchment within bore a single sentence in his father's curt script. "Watch the crow who dreams of dragons. If he flies first, clip his wings." So father anticipated Euron as well. Tyrion considered the bluntness. Tywin did not waste ink on riddles. He sent instructions sharp as spear points. Euron must not earn Daenerys' favor before Tyrion arrived. To clip wings might require bribery, sabotage, or murder. Possibly all three. He called for Yandri, tossing the sellsail a pouch heavy with golden Myrish moons. "Find me passage up the Rhoyne to Volantis," he said, "and a map of every backwater between Nugis and the Summer Sea, where a kraken might anchor." Yandri grinned, gold tooth catching candle glare. "Planning to hunt crows, Allo?" Tyrion raised his cup. "Only those who caw too loudly." Volantis sprawled along two banks of the Rhoyne like a lioness digesting half the world. Black walls, elephant banners, smoke from incense burners thick enough to choke gods. Tyrion moved under disguises that changed daily. Silk-clad merchant of saffron, one-eyed sellsword, bald eunuch, thanked the seven for stage glue. His true quarry was information. Through brothels whose bed sheets cost more than small folks' houses, he collected rumors that Daenerys now ruled Meereen by counsel, that her dragons burned fields beyond the Skahazadhan, that his Darzo Lorak lay dead or exiled, depending on who spoke. Spies contradicted one another faster than coin changed hands. One evening in the Black Goat Tavern under the Long Bridge, Tyrion met a Sarnori smuggler who swore Euron's fleet had seized a Valyrian fire priest en route to Meereen, a fanatic said to bend dragons with prayer. If true, Euron possessed more than eggs. He hunted souls. Tyrion sipped sour red and weighed his father's command. Clip his wings. But how? He was a dwarf adrift in a foreign city, whose every alley echoed with rattling chains. He found guidance in a letter addressed to Allo Spicer, delivered by a Volantine courtesan whose only clothing was stripes of red ink. The sigil, 2 towers on pale field, belonged to House Frey, yet the wax held the faint odor of maester's oil. Inside, the message was brief. "The crow feasts in the smoking sea. Burn the feast. A gift awaits in Selhoris." The Watcher. Selhoris lay upriver, a sleepy trade town where slaves harvested river pearls and gossip. Tyrion hired a poleboat crewed by mute Rhoynar twins who never blinked. Podrick, seasick even on river water, kept watch while Tyrion dreamt of crossbows firing unseen into a privy. Old ghosts, new stage. At Selhoris, night draped the docks like a dirty veil. A hooded man approached with a limp that clicked against cobbles. His voice rasped like parchment dragged across gravel. "The Watcher sends regards." He passed Tyrion a small leather case. Inside, nestled among velvet, was a glass vial of wildfire, bright green and angry even in moondark. A note beneath the vial read, "The crow's wings are wood soaked in salt. Fire will teach him flight is folly." Tyrion's breath caught. This was Tywin's hand disguised, or another puppet. Either way, Euron's feast now risked a pyre. Yet wildfire aboard ships could spread like plague through a city of wood and pitch. Tyrion pictured the docks of Meereen aflame, dragon shrieks above human screams, green fire painting night, a fresh hell. Ash would feed the very prophecy his father feared. The realm burning from horizon to horizon. He stared at the vial until dawn, feeling its heat through glass. Podrick slept nearby, boots for pillow, innocence for blanket. Tyrion wondered whether any realm deserved such children. 5 days later, they disembarked in Nugis. Here, collapsed palaces glowered over dusty streets where pale tattoo-braided Kiskari sold memories of empire for copper. Tyrion sought an old scholar, rumored to know secret moorings in the smoking sea. The man lived amid scrolls so brittle, they exhaled history at the slightest touch. Over bowls of fermented mare's milk, the scholar traced routes through islands where nothing grew, where blackened stone melted into sea foam, and night's shadows bore scales. The iron kraken anchors off Theros, he whispered. He steals slaves to man his oars. They call him Karan Khan, the cannibal captain. Now, Tyrion paid with silver and a promise of safe passage west for the scholar's grandchildren. Promises were cheap. The sea would judge their worth. He hired a narrow-hulled fishing skiff and repainted her drab gray. Podrick balked at the journey past Valyria's smoking ruin. Tyrion, heart-tripping, murmured that sometimes the best way to clip wings was to sail under them. Days blurred into choking fog and sulfur stink. The smoking sea glimmered the color of bruises. Dead cities peaked like broken teeth from leaden waves. Ghost fires flickered along distant coasts. Tyrion recalled childhood tales. Stone men, fireworms, shadows that sang. Each night he whispered a prayer to those absent gods that he might glimpse a dragon against the stars, and not lose his mind at the sight. One dawn they spied it, a fleet of black ships with sails the color of dried blood, a leviathan silhouette against a sky pale as old parchment. Kraken banners snapped in oily wind. The Silence, Euron's flagship, loomed larger than legend, her hull armored in the shields of conquered foes. Lanterns burned along her rails, curiously dim, as though Euron wished to hide even from day. Tyrion ordered their skiff to keep distance. Under deck, he tested the wildfire vial's cork, fearful of leaks. He had meant to pour it into oil barrels, set a floating inferno adrift. Now he glimpsed slaves chained across the Silence's deck, scores of gaunt men and girls. Human shields. Euron's cunning equaled Tywin's cruelty. He lowered the vial, stomach twisting. Could he burn them alive to halt a threat? If so, how did he differ from the father he despised? Yet dragons would burn multitudes more. Men like Tywin counted lives as coppers. Tyrion felt each like a golden dragon pressed against his lungs. Night approached while he argued with ghosts. The smoking sea hissed where molten veins met surf. Tyrion scribbled strategy. Throw wildfire at the Silence's rudder, cripple not torch. Board amid confusion. Kill Euron with crossbow. Escape under dark. It reeked of folly. Still, he had once survived a chain of wildfire in black water. The gods had odd tastes in jest. Podrick knelt by the stern, oiling a borrowed short-yew sword. "Lord," he whispered, "if we fail, we'll be eaten by krakens or ghosts," Tyrion finished softly. "Try not to die thirsty." They waited until the moon drowned behind ash clouds. Then, guided by dead lava flows glowing faint orange beneath waves, they slipped closer. No watch lanterns. No horns. Silence lived up to her name. The nearer they drew, the louder Tyrion's pulse beat in his ears. He could almost hear dragons calling miles away, a storm of wing beats across his soul. A rope ladder dangled from an aft port. Someone had forgotten to pull it in. Or perhaps Euron wished intruders welcome, for sport. Tyrion bit the inside of his cheek until copper filled his mouth. He secured the wildfire vial and a padded pouch across his chest. One stumble could cremate him and half the sea. Podrick scaled first, quiet as new snow, vanishing into gloom. Tyrion followed, every rung a prayer. They emerged behind stacked crates. The deck smelled of tar and old blood. A single torch fought the dark, revealing shapes. Slaves slumped in chains, too weary to shiver. Sailors passed out beside overturned cups. Music drifted from the forecastle, eerie as wind through bone pipes. Euron's men slept drunk, celebrating plunder. Tyrion crept toward the helm. He must reach the rudder chain, smash the vial, then flee. A simple plan? Like battle maps drawn by children? He eased between two unconscious reavers, one missing an eye. The moonlight slid across steel rings on their armor. A boot heel scuffed behind him. He turned. A towering sailor loomed, eyes yellow in lamplight. Recognition flashed. This one had served in the stepstones, face tattooed with storm runes. The man opened his mouth. Tyrion hurled himself forward, driving his head into the sailor's gut. The man grunted, grabbed for him. Podrick burst from shadows, sword singing. 2 strokes. One across the throat, one finishing the spine. Blood sprayed china red over deck boards. Someone shouted. Sleep ended for the silence. Torches flared. Horns blared low like sea beasts mourning. Figures sprang up, axes brandished. Tyrion felt the vial's heat like a heart within his breast. No time for subtle sabotage now. He sprinted toward the nearest mast, Podrick at his heels. The dwarf's lungs burned. He yanked the vial free, hurling it at a bundle of sailcloth coated in whale oil. Glass shattered. Green fire erupted, hungry, ecstatic, licking up rigging. Men shrieked. Shadows danced, twisting into devils. Wildfire spilled across deck seams, devouring wood as if it were paper. The silence roared alive. Above the conflagration strode a figure in black silk, a patch of shadow where even fire dared not crackle. His smile seemed carved from the dark. Euron Greyjoy regarded Tyrion as though greeting an expected guest at an unannounced hour. "Little lion," he called over the inferno, voice calm, amused. "Did you bring me a gift?" Tyrion's throat closed. The flames behind Euron painted wings along his shoulders, a demon crow ascending. Reavers surged between them, but Euron lifted a hand, halting pursuit. His gaze held Tyrion in a cage of curiosity. "I brought you fire," Tyrion said, forcing breath. "A taste of what dragons offer. Consider it a warning." "It feels like a lover's kiss," Euron replied, stepping nearer, untouched by sparks. "Dreams that burn bright end quickly. Yet here you stand, a Hoffman bearing a whole man's courage. Join me. We will ride dragons together." "Mr. Manning. Not likely. I prefer riding whores who don't breathe flame." Euron laughed, a sound void of mirth. "Then you will die." Arrows hissed. Podrick shielded Tyrion, dragging him toward the ladder. The deck pitched. Wildfire reached the masthead with a boom. Planks burst. Smoke geysers curled skyward. Tyrion coughed green fumes. Slave chains snapped in heat. Shrieking forms fled flames, some leaping over rails into the molten sea. They descended the rope ladder, burning tar raining along hull sides. The skiff tossed below. Tyrion leapt, felt water slap his ankles as he landed. Pod followed. Oars bit waves. They pulled away under hail of arrows that sizzled into water. Behind them, the silence burned like an emerald beacon, her mast a torch to mark disaster. But Euron had not fallen. Tyrion glimpsed the crow-eyed captain upon the bowsprit, silhouette against churning hell, cloak spread like ragged wings as if savoring annihilation. The wildfire illuminated a grin too wide for any sane face. The skiff skimmed through floating cinders. Far off, morning glowed behind ash haze. Promise of another day, unasked. Tyrion's arms trembled with exhaustion. Podrick rode in grim silence, jaw set. "What now, my lord?" the boy asked, voice hoarse. Tyrion wiped soot from his brow. The vial was spent, yet the crow still soared. Perhaps Euron would sink before dawn. Perhaps he would rise again with fresh nightmares. Either way, dragons remained, and Tywin's instructions echoed like temple bells. Learn her weaknesses. He rubbed his aching wrists, remembering the chains that once cut them. Freedom came at cost. So did alliance. Somewhere beyond the horizon lay Meereen, a queen with silver gold hair and eyes like violent summer. Tyrion pictured her seated on a carved bench of ebony, dragons coiled at her feet, the heat of their breath warping air between them. "I sail to meet a dragon," he whispered. "Tell me, Pod, do you fear fire?" The boy glanced at the burning silhouette astern. "After tonight," he managed a shaky grin. "Only a little less." Tyrion laughed, a broken, weary sound. Wind carried sparks toward the dawn, each ember a fragment of plans yet to forge. He leaned forward, eyes narrowed, plotting new gambits across invisible boards. Behind him, the silence smoldered, but ahead lay cities, riddles, and war. The game would last months, perhaps years. And he felt the first thrill of purpose ignite within his chest. Quieter than wildfire, but hotter, steadier. In the song of creaking oars and whispering wake, Tyrion Lannister began to compose letters to a queen he had never met, telling tales she might believe, weaving half-truths into snares of gold. He would serve his father's realm, and perhaps his own salvation, one cunning word at a time. The skiff sailed toward the rising sun, and smoke trailed behind like the tail of some wounded comet, a herald of fire yet unleashed upon the world. The skiff crept southeastward through streaks of poisoned fog, hugging striated cliffs where rivers of once liquid stone had cooled into crags. For 3 nights Tyrion slept in fits, waking often to the coughing of the oars or to Podrick's muffled mutterings. Yet each time the darkness shrank, and his resolve seemed to grow within its borders. Dawn bled through ragged clouds on the 4th morning, and at last the ash haze broke into blue. Behind them, the smoking sea's corpse-gray swell receded like an old nightmare. Ahead, the summer sea glimmered pale gold beneath the newborn sun, and Tyrion felt as though he had stepped from a crypt into a cathedral. They traded the battered skiff for passage on a wine galley bound for Qohor. Its captain, a barrel-balmy Marish renegade, whose reputation for blasphemy charmed Tyrion. Captain Melando never questioned the dwarf's reasons for seeking Slaver's Bay. He measured men by the weight of their coin purses, not the shape of their secrets. Tyrion paid in Volantine silver stamped with twin tigers and accepted a hammock beside the galley's bow chaser, a scarred bronze cannon cast in the image of a shrieking satyr. The journey across the summer sea proved quieter than the dwarf had expected. The wind sat right in the sails, and the crew, mostly Sarnori free riders turned deckhands by poverty, feared the tales of dragonfire enough to remain sober and dutiful. Tyrion spent hour after hour leaning against an oar bench, staring at the shifting edge of sky and water. He wrote letters to Daenerys in a cipher Tywin had taught him in childhood. Every 7th word of an innocuous ledger entry contained the true intent. He penned drafts addressed to Her Radiance and the Shining Queen of Meereen, but tore most of them up. Too grandiloquent, too obsequious, too foreign. Finally, he settled on a single page addressed simply, "To the Breaker of Chains," written in the thin, spidery stroke he used when he wished to appear frail. The letter offered nothing but a riddle. A chain has no power until joined. A dragon, no throne until landed. A dwarf has no master but choice. I choose to know you before the bells ring. Nenman. He sealed it with blank wax, a faceless missive for a queen who collected freedmen like scholars collected scrolls. Podrick busied himself learning knots and half-hitches from the Sarnori. At night he quizzed Tyrion on the rules of highborn etiquette, determined to impersonate a valet rather than a mute nephew. Tyrion coached him to keep his chin lifted, to offer opinions only when asked, and to remember 3 truths about court life. People believe what benefits them. Pride blinds more surely than wine, and secrets shared are blades unsheathed. Pod listened earnestly, repeating the maxims like prayers. The boy had grown broader of shoulders since the Blackwater, though his eyes still carried that uncertain kindness that never survived long at court. Tyrion feared for him, the way a maester fears for a favorite raven perched on a battlefield wall. They docked at Qohor just long enough to purchase a carved ivory idol from a shadow binder, who promised it would ward off fire born of grief. Tyrion tossed it into the galley's bilge the moment they set sail again. Superstition weighed too much, and he would not bargain with ghosts. Still, he could not forget the image of Euron Greyjoy standing unabashed in the wildfire's glow, teeth bared like a wolf's in joyous ruin. Had the crow died? Perhaps, but Tyrion suspected the man would rise from the ashes, crown himself fire foe, and sail on. It mattered little for the moment. Meereen rose closer with every gust. 2 weeks slid by like ripe figs spilling from a basket. In that time, rumors sifted across the sea on other ships. A dragon queen had reopened the fighting pits with a set of rules that spited old masters. A plague of pale mare ravaged her camps. A noble son of Yunkai offered 50 chests of gold for her death, while Volantis mustered 1,000 warships to claim the Slaver's Road in her name. No telling which whispers hid kernels of truth. All that proved certain was that Daenerys Targaryen's presence had become the great lever shifting the economies of half a world. They reached the mouth of the Skahazadon just past the sixth crescent of the moon. Brown water frothed beneath the galley's keel, smelling of wet reeds and distant decay. Tyrion stood at the rail, boots slick with dew, feeling his stomach tighten with anticipation. A dragon might circle overhead any moment. Would he quail when the black wing blotted out the sun? Instead of fear, he discovered a childlike awe squirming behind his ribs. Even broken men recall wonder, he told himself. The trick is not to crush it beneath cynicism. Melendi refused to sail closer than the ghost town of Valasar for fear of scaleless lizards with teeth like scimitars. Tyrion parted with the galley, giving the captain an extra purse to keep his tongue moored in port. From Valasar, they hired a shallow draft pole barge crewed by former slaves in patchwork tunics of mottled blue and ochre. Their leader, a gaunt woman called Bazelia, kept her mouth shut unless asked a direct question. But her eyes lingered on Tyrion's face with quiet recognition. Perhaps she too had known dwarfs who played savior and sinner both. 3 days poling against the river's slow coil brought them to Meereen's shadow. The city rose from arid plain like a bejeweled pyramid, its stepped sides covered with night-black slate under a haze of dust. Above its crowning terrace, gargantuan harpy wings drooped, torn and charred from previous rebellions, feathers missing like teeth from a skull. To the west sprawled tent cities of freedmen and sellswards. Cooking smoke drifted upward, carrying the scent of spiced goat and boiled grain. To the east, the green-brown Skahazadon branched into irrigation canals, shading orchards of blood oranges that thrived in dragon-heated soil. Their barge passed under a rippling banner at a newly built river fort, where unsullied in pale blue scarves stood sentinel. The spearmen stared ahead without flinch, perfect stillness broken only by the occasional blink. Tyrion found himself comparing them to Tywin's gold cloaks. Bribable, quarrelsome, vain, and the resemblance ended with man. These were weapons, not soldiers. At Bazelia's nod, they tied up at a wharf crowded with merchants unloading bolts of linen and crates of amber. Tyrion disembarked in a humble sand-colored robe tied with a crimson sash, hair dusted with white to age him. Podrick followed, chestnut wig concealing his honest brown hair. They carried no heraldry, only a stack of sealed parchments and a wooden chest containing Tywin startup funds, silver stags, gold dragons, and Myrish moons mixed to confuse any customs inspector. No sooner had their feet touched planks than 2 cloaked figures approached. Slim, nimble, wearing mottled green veils. They bowed simultaneously and spoke in soft Kiskari accents. The handmaiden welcomes the quill from the west. A pre-arranged phrase contained in Tywin's final ledger. Proof that father's spider threads already tangled Mirian's alleys. The left figure beckoned. Tyrion and Podrick followed through markets echoing with calls of hawkers praising honey liver and camphor wine. Above the haze of dust and incense, Tyrion glimpsed the sweep of a dark wing. His breath hitched, but it was only a broad sail on a grain barge. Disappointment or relief, he couldn't tell. They entered a narrow door in a yellow-plastered wall, descended stairs into a chamber lit by hanging clay braziers. There, between curtains of violet silk, awaited a woman in simple Meereenese garb, white linen, girded with green cords. Her hair was silver gold, but woven with coils of lapis beads, an imitation of royal style. She looked near Tyrion's age, yet her eyes carried centuries. She rose lightly and extended her palm in Westerosi greeting. "I am Irri, once handmaiden to Daenerys Stormborn," she said in careful comment. "Now I serve as her voice when her dragons speak louder than men." "You are Allo Spicer?" Tyrion bowed low. "A merchant of curiosities. I pray your queen enjoys riddles." Irri regarded him. "Curiosities break many chains here." Her gaze slid to Podrick. "And your companion is?" "My scribe," Tyrion said. "Writes faster than I can think. Most impressive." She motioned to low cushions near a carved cedar table. Plates of honeyed persimmon and pomegranate seeds awaited. He ate. You will meet her grace when she determines the day auspicious. Patience is the chain no hand can see. Tyrion seated himself, plucked a seed cluster, and answered with a smile. Everything worth shaping takes the time it chooses, my lady. Even dragons must sleep between feasts. Irri inclined her head as if acknowledging a shared truth. You may lodge in the Pyramid of Haskar, in quarters for ambassadors. An unsullied escort will guide you. She slid a sealed clay tablet toward him. Your arrival has not gone unnoticed by others, however. A gift came for you. It bears the mark of a black kraken. The tablet's sigil, impressed in wax, matched what Tyrion had seen on Euron's sails, an eye flanked by curling tentacles. He suppressed a shiver. So the crow had survived, and flown faster. He weighed the small package, half expecting it to burn. With a nod from Irri, he cracked the seal. Inside lay a single iron coin, dull and pocked with rust. On one side, the brazen face of a woman screaming. On the other, a ring of 6 tongues swirling outward. No inscription, no hint, but that horrific visages awaited. Irri's lips tightened. Your enemies announce themselves boldly. The queen will wish to know why. Because boldness is a mask for weakness, Tyrion said, closing the tablet. And fear is a ladder to foolishness. Irri smiled, faint and knowing. Then perhaps you have something to offer after all, merchant. She stood. Rest, Daenerys. When your hour arrives, a bell will toll thrice in the courtyard. Come unarmed, with your scribe, and bring no gifts save the words in your head. Now pale. They were escorted through sun-splashed courtyards, lined with marble fountains, where dragon-shaped waterspouts gushed cool streams into mosaic-tiled basins. Children splashed under watchful freedmen, singing a nursery rhyme that Tyrion translated roughly as, "If you hear the dragon roar, hide your honey on the floor." A morbid lullaby, yet oddly charming. Their assigned rooms overlooked a roof garden draped in night-blooming jasmine. A vista beyond the parapet revealed Meereen's outer wall, and the tent cities where smoke curled above tin chimneys. In the distance, a flicker of shadow crossed the sky. This time Tyrion knew. No sail mimicked that thunder of air. A dragon, scouting at dusk. He exhaled slowly, feeling his heart sink to its unseen wing beats. After a supper of pomegranate lamb and spiced yogurt, Podrick dozed on a low divan. Tyrion sat at a writing desk, quill hovering. Dozens of questions crowded his mind, but one rose loudest. Have you asked what the dragons want? Kings want crowns, armies want loot, small folk want bread. But what does a creature older than empire desire? Territory? Tribute? Tyrion suspected something simpler. Space to fly and meat to scorch. If he could present himself as an ally to that freedom rather than an enemy, he might survive the first meeting. He drafted a new letter to Daenerys, shorter still. I come not to bridle dragons but to ask which winds they favor. Will you speak with a wanderer of Westeros who lost his chain before gaining his wings? He tucked it inside his sleeve. Perhaps he'd recite it instead. The bell tolled thrice 2 mornings later, silver chimes winding through corridors like playful spirits. Tyrion smoothed his robe, draped a striped green sash, and tucked a small dirk into his boot. Daenerys might forbid weapons, but he had learned long ago that a Lannister's wit sharpened best with steel at hand. Podrick wore a brown scribe's smock, and carried 2 reed pen rolls bound in flax. Irri led them through torchlit tunnels beneath the great pyramid of Meereen. The air changed, cooler, tinged with limestone damp. Finally they emerged into a vaulted hall, whose ceiling soared so high Tyrion imagined clouds stirring above. Statues of former Meereenese conquerors stood along the walls. Harpy-headed kings and queens wielding chains, their stone faces chipped by rebellion. At the far end glimmered a dais of polished obsidian. 3 steps, then a chair half throne, half saddle, carved with twisting scales. On that seat, barefoot, wearing a sleeveless gown of ivory silk trimmed with gold firepots, sat Daenerys Targaryen. Sunlight spilled through high slits, catching silver-gold hair braided into a crown interlaced with black ribbons. Her skin, unlike the erotic murals of Meereen's bathhouses, was unadorned. No cosmetics, no jeweled necklace, save for a faded pink scar along her left forearm. Perhaps a dragon's talon mark. Her eyes found Tyrion the moment he entered, as if she had been staring at that doorway since creation began. The hall emptied save for 6 unsullied, eerie, gray worm looming behind the throne, and a broad-shouldered knight in a winged helm. Sir Barristan the Bold, still formidable despite silver stubble. He regarded Tyrion with guarded courtesy, perhaps remembering stories of this dwarf's cunning in King's Landing. Tyrion stepped forward until he reached a mosaic of a many-armed goddess bending chains into plowshares. He bowed low in Westerosi fashion, then rose. The queen's voice, when it came, surprised him by how youthful it sounded beneath the steel. "You are called Allo Spicer," she said, accent lilting like a song that had wandered far from home. "A merchant of unprofitable truths," Tyrion answered with an incline of his head. "And like all merchants, I travel where the market hungers." She studied him. "Truth breeds famine more often than feast. In Westeros, perhaps. I hoped Slaver's Bay had acquired a palate for irony." One corner of her mouth twitched, a hint of amusement or impatience. "You carry no wares." "My wares are stories, riddles, and the occasional whisper disguised as counsel." Sir Barristan stepped forward. "And whispers serve whom, exactly?" "You arrive under cipher. We found this in your bag." He held up Tyrion's sealed Lannister letter that Eerie had not mentioned, the spidery scrawl visible through cracked wax. "You address the queen as Breaker of Chains, yet you bear the seal of Tywin Lannister. Explain." Podrick shifted. Tyrion placed a calming hand on the boy's forearm. "Steady, lad. Shut." "I wrote that letter," he conceded, voice calm. "The seal I borrowed from a man I hope never to meet again. I serve neither Lannister nor Tyrell nor Greyjoy. I serve questions whose answers shape the fates of thousands." Daenerys leaned back, fingertips clasped. "You traveled the smoking sea, survived pirates, entered my city under false name, all to ask questions." "Questions," Tyrion said, "are arrows. Sometimes they pierce illusions faster than spears pierce flesh. My first arrow is simple. What do you desire most?" Sir Barristan bristled. "Bold." "Let him speak," Daenerys interrupted softly, eyes still on Tyrion. Tyrion bowed. "Thank you, Your Grace. I ask because a wise woman once told me, desire is a rider none can dismount unless they know its name. Your enemies think you desire the Iron Throne. Your allies hope you desire justice. Your dragons, well, they desire meat and sky. But what does Daenerys Stormborn desire when no one watches?" Silence pooled. Grey Worm's gaze never wavered, but Tyrion sensed the unsullied adjusting grips on spears. Daenerys' expression remained unreadable. Eventually she spoke. "I desire a world where the great and small break bread at the same table without fear of chains." A pause, voice steady. "And I will burn any city that denies them a seat." Tyrion inclined his head. "A noble desire. Yet burning a city empties many seats. You disapprove." "I admire the conviction," Tyrion said. "But I question the arithmetic. Ash feeds no mouths. Fear grows short roots." She stood, silk dress whispering over obsidian steps. Up close, Tyrion saw the candlelit flecks of violet in her eyes, twin crucibles smoldering with old grief. "And what arithmetic would you employ, merchant?" "Whispers," Tyrion said softly. "Soft words that turn masters into mirrors, reflecting their own ugliness back until they shatter. Cheaper than fire. Leaves buildings intact." Sir Barristan laughed, not kindly. "Spoken like a man who's never swung a sword for honor." "I swing wit," Tyrion said. "Sharper than any dull piece of steel when aimed right." Daenerys lifted a hand. "Enough. Sir Barristan, Grey Worm, leave us with Eerie and the guards." The knight hesitated but bowed. Tyrion watched them depart. Even outnumbered, he sensed no danger from the queen herself. Her power lay in conviction, not lances. When doors echoed shut, Daenerys descended until she stood 3 paces away, eye level with Tyrion despite his stature. "I once broke open the gates of Meereen with catapults flinging broken collars," she said. I learned then that symbols can wound as keenly as arrows. What symbol do you bring? He reached inside his sleeve, produced the Iron Kraken coin, and offered it on his palm. A warning. This came from the Silence, flagship of Euron Greyjoy. A man who courts you with horror disguised as homage. He sails here with stolen priests and enslaved oarsmen. He would chain dragons if he could, or burn the world for a tune in his head. Your enemies multiply beyond these walls. She took the coin, rolled it between thumb and forefinger, eyes narrowing. You know this man. I set fire to his ship, Tyrion admitted, yet failed to kill him. He survived wildfire. That alone marks him dangerous. He means to arrive under pretense of alliance. Do you accept every kraken that smiles? No. She smiled without mirth. I accept nothing without testing its teeth. When he comes, I will measure his depths. May I assist? Tyrion asked. I know how krakens thrash when nets slow them. Her gaze sharpened. What price? Only that I be allowed to ask. How do you intend to rule Westeros when you cannot yet mend Meereen? I speak not as critic, but as craftsman offering tools. He spread his hands. I was hand of the king once. Briefly, but I wore the chain in truth. I know the machinery of Westeros. Let me grease your gears. Non-domoro. Irri sucked breath. Surprise flickered across Daenerys' face like lightning behind clouds. For a moment, she seemed less conqueror than woman confronted by her own ambitions. You claim a high office for a nameless merchant, she said softly. Names can be forged, Tyrion replied. Offices likewise if they fit. He dropped to one knee, though his joints protested. I, Tyrion of House Lannister, titleless and debt-ridden, offer my counsel and cunning to Daenerys Stormborn. I will serve as voice, mirror, fiend, or fool, whatever tool you require, until you judge me unworthy. He lifted his gaze. In exchange, spare Westeros the needless fires my father plots. Let whispers silence war before dragons must speak. The admission of his true name hung like flint and smoke. Irri gasped. The Unsullied shifted again, but stillness resumed. Daenerys extended her hand. Tyrion placed his calloused dwarfish fingers beneath her lighter ones. Warmth traveled through his skin like an oath. Rise, Tyrion Lannister, she said. Serve me, and swear by the fire you fear that if you betray me, you will taste that fire before it touches my people. Messer. He rose, bowed. I swear by every spark I ever feared. So be it. She released his hand. Irri will arrange quarters within the Great Pyramid. You will meet my council at dusk. She turned away, coin still clutched. And bring that Kraken coin. I would taste the metal of my foe. Tyrion nodded. I suspect it tastes of rust and lies. As he left, heart pounding, he realized the letter to Tywin remained in Ser Barristan's possession. If the queen learned he arrived with a Lannister bargain in hand, suspicion might sour this fragile alliance. He would need to retrieve or explain it swiftly. For now, Daenerys had accepted him. A single step on a long climb. Podrick trailed him through corridors of sandstone lit by arrow slits. My lord, he whispered, you told her your true name. Truth is a blade, Pod, Tyrion murmured. Sometimes you draw it to show you're unafraid. But, she already suspected. Best to unsheathe myself before she tears open my scabbard. Mendiman sen. The council meeting convened in a sunken chamber, shaped like a seven-pointed star. An architectural jest Moiraine's Kaskari builders, fashioned to mock the faith long ago. At its tips sat representatives. Grey Worm, Ser Barristan, Missandei of Aneth, a former pit champion called Strong Belwaz, and a slender brown-skinned woman in a half-mask of jade introduced as Shavapate's niece, Vedja. Each spoke for a faction. Unsullied Westerosi exiles, freed scribes, pit fighters, and the shadowy brazen beasts. Daenerys took no singular throne. She stood at the circle's center, barefoot on mosaic tile cooled by running water beneath. Tyrion arrived escorted by Irri, offering a polite bow. Grey Worm regarded him with blank curiosity. Missandei with shy intrigue. Vezov with thinly veiled contempt. Kaskari rarely forgot Lannister gold, once purchased their ancestors. Ser Barristan's eyes narrowed, but the old knight said nothing. Daenerys gestured. "My counsel, the dwarf who calls himself Tyrion Lannister. He claims wisdom in war and governance." She paused. "Hay claims also that Euron Greyjoy sails to woo us with blood." Strong Belwas belched laughter. "If he brings fish, Belwas will eat." Vedshov hissed. "Ironborn devils deserve flaying, not feasting." Tyrion smiled serenely. "Ironborn love flaying themselves. Saves us work." He placed the coin on a low table. "Let the carved tongues glint in torchlight. But the Kraken is cunning. We must greet him with nets rather than spears." Missandei leaned forward. "What nets?" "Questions," Tyrion said. "Euron's pride matches his cruelty. We invite him to speak publicly, praising the Queen, challenging the Yunkish, boasting of his fleet. The more he talks, the more rope he braids to hang himself." "In our," Ser Barristan frowned. "Words do not sink ships." "True." Tyrion produced a small parchment. "But in Volantis I persuaded a group of Volantine priests to declare Daenerys the promised flame-bearer, rightful heir to Balerion's fire. They intend to sanctify any who sail under her banner. Euron, a notorious kinslayer and reaver, stands cursed by their creed. If he publicly pledges fealty, he discredits their sanctification, splitting Volantis from him. If he refuses, he insults the Queen. Either way, cracks spread." "Nandabawash," Daenerys considered. "And when cracks widen, wildfire flows in," Tyrion murmured, without lighting a spark. Grey Worm spoke at last, voice low. "The Iron Captain is enemy. We kill his fleet in bay." Tyrion inclined his head. "And lose ships we later need to ferry armies across the narrow sea. Better to lull him than seize his fleet intact. Imagine Kraken sails bearing the dragon's sigil." Missandei's eyes widened. "Conquest. Ships." Daenerys exhaled slowly. "And how do you propose to seize them intact?" Tyrion placed a slender amphora on the table. Nightshade extract mixed with oil of poppy. Delivered in casks of Myrish wine labeled, "Tribute from the Broken West." Enough to lull a bull elephant when Euron's crew slumbers, unsullied board. No blood, no fire. Silence filled the star-shaped hall. At last Daenerys said, "This is cunning. It risks little cost, and offers much." Tyrion finished. "The realm of Westeros reads true victory in silent ports." Ser Barristan sighed. "Such treachery sits ill with honor." Tyrion bowed to the old knight. "Honor rides fine horses, sir. Treachery builds the roads they trot upon." Daenerys lifted her hand. "We will deliberate." She turned to Tyrion. "Speak with Missandei. She will show you records of our stores. Determine what we can spare." She paused. "And tomorrow, join me for a walk among my dragons." He felt breath catch. "Your grace honors me." "That depends whether they like your scent." Missandei led Tyrion through labyrinthine archives carved into pyramid walls. Papyrus rolls stacked like brittle towers. Wax tablets etched with supply tallies. Codices bound in scale-pattern leather. Missandei moved with quiet grace, explaining Marinese numerals in crisp common. She proved a quick study of Westerosi trade routes. Together they mapped how captured ironborn vessels could form the skeleton of an invasion flotilla, supplemented by Pentoshi galleys, bribed with trade concessions once Daenerys took King's Landing. Hours passed unnoticed. At one point Missandei paused, quill hovering. "You served the king who executed Eddard Stark, yes?" "Yes," Tyrion admitted softly. "Do you regret?" "Regret is a bedfellow I know well. Yet I learn little while staring at him. So I rise, dress, and choose new sins." He offered a rueful smile. "Perhaps helping your queen is penance." She studied him with eyes like warm teak. "Penance begins with truth." He nodded. "Tomorrow, I will tell her everything. My father's letters, the wildfire plan, Euron's coin. Even the silver I carry that once served her enemies. If she kills me, so be it. I will not bring the Lannister lies into her court." "And?" Missandei's shoulders eased. "Dragons respect honesty it is said. That and goats. The next morning dawned clear, wind sweeping desert heat into pleasant warmth. Tyrion met Daenerys atop a balcony garden where indigo flowers drooped heavy with dew. She wore riding leathers and a cloak of quilted linen dyed storm gray. In her hands, she held 2 chains of dark iron, each link thicker than Tyrion's wrist. "Come," she said. They bask on the far terrace. Irri and 2 Dothraki bloodriders accompanied them. Podrick remained behind, catalog ledgers. They descended a spiral stair to an open platform. There, coiled like living catapults, lay Viserion and Rhaegal, scales shimmering white gold and green bronze respectively. Each dragon stretched 40 feet nose to tail, wings draped over parapets. Smoke curled lazily from Viserion's nostrils, scent of burnt marrow and line resin. Tyrion halted, breath stolen. Childhood sketches crawled to life before him. And yet none captured the raw, feral beauty. Eyes the color of molten copper studied him, ancient, measuring. He bowed deeply, though reason told him dragons cared little for courtesy. Daenerys knelt, murmured in Valyrian. The dragons stirred, chuffing soft plumes. She stroked Viserion's jaw, then tossed him a haunch of cured goat. He caught it in fangs long as sabers. She beckoned. Tyrion, approach. Slowly, he stepped 1 foot, then another, pulse hammering. Rhaegal's golden-green eyes narrowed. Tyrion extended a trembling hand, palm outward. The dragon's nostrils flared, tasting his scent. A low rumble vibrated the air, neither threat nor welcome, but acknowledgement. Tyrion whispered, "Magnificent." Rhaegal tilted his head, exposing a patch where a scale had chipped, revealing pink hide. Tyrion resisted touch. To reach would be folly. Yet Rhaegal pressed gently closer, until Tyrion's palm met warm, textured scale. Electricity shot up his arm, heat, life, something beyond comprehension. "I dreamed of dragons," he said softly. "Dreamed of flying one day." Daenerys watched, expression unreadable. "Dreams shape destinies," she murmured. "What do they dream of?" Tyrion whispered, stroking the chipped scale's edge. "Sky. Freedom. Fire." She stepped beside him. "And perhaps music. Drogon hums when he circles the city at night, as if singing to stars." Tyrion withdrew his hand. "Then, let us give them songs worth singing. Songs of cities unburned." She met his gaze. "I intend to end the slave masters of Yunkai and Astapor. Their envoys barter in chains even now. Will whispers solve them?" He sighed. "Whispers cannot redeem the irredeemable, but a single decisive strike, burn their fleets, seize their grain, will force surrender. Do that, and your legend becomes mercy wrapped in inevitability." "Mercy is not what the masters deserve. It is what the realm will remember." She considered, eyes scanning the horizon. "I will ponder." She handed him one of the iron chains. "A token. It bound Rhaegal once. I keep it as reminder." He weighed the heavy link loop, cold, pitted. "A reminder of that chains fall," she said quietly. "And those who forge them will answer to fire." That night, Tyrion composed a full confession letter to Daenerys. He explained his service to Joffrey, his murder charge, his father's bargain, the wildfire vial. He held nothing back. He sealed the letter but left it on his desk, intending to present it at first light. Sleep came reluctantly. In dream, he stood atop the wall, watching 3 dragons carve burning runes across northern sky. From the runes poured iron coins that sprouted tentacles and slithered like snakes across snow. He awoke in sweat to distant shouting. Through the shutter slits, flames flickered. Not dragon fire, but torches. Bells clanged. Tyrion threw on a robe, grabbed his dirk, and roused Podrick. Together, they hurried into hallways teeming with unsullied. Smoke wafted upward. Someone set fires in the lower bazaar. Tyrion intercepted Irri. Breathless. "Attack. Riot," she said. Rumors spread that the queen struck a bargain with Yunkai to restore limited slavery for 5 years. Lies but mobs threw stones. Brazen beasts clash with freedmen. Who spread lies? Ira's eyes flitted. Notes pinned to doorposts, written in High Valyrian, bearing Black Kraken. You're on again. Tyrion cursed under his breath. Where's the queen? Terrace tower with dragons. See Podrick to safety. I will go to her. He pushed through corridors into open air. Smoke hung over Meereen. Fires burned in a crescent around the fighting pits. Figures scurried like ants. Bells tolled from 3 pyramids, each voice out of sync, discord breeding confusion. Tyrion climbed narrow steps carved into the pyramid's skin. Atop a wind-lashed parapet, he found Daenerys astride Drogon, the black-scaled behemoth crouched like a gargoyle. Eyes red as garnets. His wings unfurled, eclipsing half the moons. Rhaegal and Viserion circled above, shrieking. Daenerys' hair whipped in smoky gusts. She wore no saddle. She gripped spines at Drogon's neck. Below, the riot swelled. She raised an arm. Drogon roared. A thunderclap of furnace breath. A plume of orange flame arced into the night, incinerating scaffolding near the spice market. Screams lifted. Tyrion reached the parapet edge, heart pounding. Your Grace. She glanced back, face streaked with soot and fury. They murder children who bear my sigil. They burn freedmen inns. I will answer. He stepped closer, though heat blasted his skin. Answer wisely. Every fire tonight writes a verse of how Westeros will greet you. Burn rioters, you burn their hope. Her jaw clenched. They call me queen, yet spit it in my name. Then show them a queen's restraint, not a conqueror's wrath. Below, arrows flew from rooftops, some clattering off Drogon's scales, harmless. One lodged near his joint. He snarled, tail lashing a stone turret into rubble. Daenerys' hand trembled. Tyrion shouted over the gale. The Kraken coin sowed this riot. Fight the Kraken, not the flock. She closed her eyes briefly, then exhaled. Drogon's rumble softened. She spoke softly in Valyrian. The great beast beat his wings, rising. Wind nearly toppled Tyrion. Drogon wheeled once above the riot, fire pulsing in his throat, but he did not unleash. Instead, he soared toward the river, Rhaegal and Viserion trailing like shadows. The fires below still burned, but without dragonfire they remained small. Grey Worm's regiments marched, forming shields around clusters of freedmen. Brazen beasts on stilt legs doused flames with sand buckets. By dawn, smoke thinned into gray ribbons. Tyrion met Daenerys in the council chamber, both smelling of smoke. She approached, shoulders sagging. You stayed my hand, she said quietly. Why? Because you are my queen, he said simply, and my queen's rage must serve her dream, not drown it. She nodded slowly. Euron Greyjoy's coin. He tests me. Then we test him harder. She breathed deep. Plan it. I will hear your counsel at dusk. As she turned to leave, Tyrion produced his confession letter. There is more you must read. I hold no secrets from you. She accepted the letter, eyes flicking over the seal. Then, no secrets will divide us. She tucked it into her sash. Rest now. You've earned Dawn's mercy. He watched her depart, feeling weight lift. Yet new heaviness settled. The knowledge that Tywin expected sabotage and Euron's plots coiled faster. He rubbed smoke from his eyes. 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months. This game would stretch each into an eternity. He must shape every whisper, every symbol, every dragon's breath, and forge a future where ash served planting, not graves. In the quiet that followed, as Meereen licked its wounds and the sun rose scarlet over distant dunes, Tyrion Lannister allowed himself the briefest smile. He had danced with dragons and lived. Now came the harder step, teaching kingdoms to dance without crushing themselves beneath the wings of dream. Sleep eluded Tyrion the next 2 nights. His rooms within the Great Pyramid overlooked a garden where pale-leafed fig trees drooped above silent pools, and the chirr of sand crickets should have lulled him, yet his skull thrummed with schemes, diagrams of poisoned wine, decoy fleets built of false sails, treaties drafted in mirror ink so only heat could reveal the terms. He watched the moon drift past stone lions and wondered if Tywin stood at Casterly Rock, staring at the same blood-white crescent, oblivious that his dwarf son worked to twist father's levers into the queen's. Half loyalty, half rebellion. The coin Tyrion now spent with every breath. At dusk, the council reconvened, this time in a roofless court, open to desert sky. A dry breeze tugged lantern flames sideways, so shadows leaned like eavesdroppers above the gilt-edged tiles. Daenerys arrived clad in a jacket of black leather stitched with silver thread, in the shape of tiny wings. Beside her strode Grey Worm in polished scale mail, and to Tyrion's surprise, his Dar Zolarak, haggard but alive, limped behind wearing a slave's white tunic. Wordless proof the queen had reclaimed one of her trickiest adversaries. Tyrion laid a single scroll on a low marble table, polished to mirror sheen. "Elan," he said, meeting their eyes one by one. "It weaves 3 threads. Cut any one, and the web still holds." He unfurled the parchment. Inked across it, a map of Meereen's harbor, the Skahazadhan Delta, and the semicircle of tents east and west where Yunkish and Sellsword forces camp. Over the gulf he'd drawn stylized kraken banners and slim galley outlines in green. "Thread the first," he began, tapping the kraken fleet. "Euron Greyjoy expects laurels and applause when he rows upriver. We will give him a festival. Greenscale Day, honoring the peace between storm and flame." He glanced at Missandei, who nodded. She had crafted the festival's myth overnight, citing an obscure Giscari harvest rite twisted into new form. "The city's freedmen will believe the day celebrates their dragon queen forging union with a kraken prince against the masters. They will gather at the harbor to cheer." Ser Barristan grunted. "You risk rousing the same mob that rioted." "We will feed them," Tyrion replied. "Hizdar's granaries will open, grain cakes laced with poppy seed. Joy dulls until truth drips slow." He flicked a red dot on the quay. "Meanwhile, casks of a rare arbor red, gifted by Euron himself, will roll up his own gangways. Only it will not be wine. Our nightshade mixture perfected by Meereen's alchemists, sedates in one draught. Unsullied board under guise of dockworkers, fetter the crew, seize the Silence and her sisters before sunset." Daenerys traced a finger along the map. "And Euron? He will find himself hauled in golden chains before your council." Tyrion's eyes glinted. "Then thread the second begins. We force him to trade the location of his hidden forges in the stepstones, where he shaped scorpion bolts tipped with wyvern blood poison. In exchange, you promise him command of your Westerosi fleet after the conquest. An empty promise, for by then he will tragically drown at sea while testing a new war galley. But the forges become ours." Vetchov's jade mask tilted. "Elaborate subterfuge," she hissed. "And the Yunkai?" "Thread the third," Tyrion said, sliding the tip of his quill to the camps encircling Meereen's southeastern walls. "We spread word that Daenerys intends to march west with Greyjoy ships, leaving Meereen undermanned. Yunkai will strike to reclaim the city before the fleet sails. They will see only weakness." Grey Worm's jaw tightened. "Trap." "Indeed." Tyrion smiled. "Unsullied vanish inside tunnels dug by freed stonemasons these past moons. Sewers cleaned, widened. When Yunkai's vanguard breaches the river gate, they'll find empty streets. From hidden shutters, dragons launch, spewing blue-tinged wildfire, lesser cousin to King's Landings, but enough to corral their lines. Unsullied erupt behind. Enemy routed in one dawn. Bien. Ser Barristan folded arms. "Wildfire again. A diluted brew," Tyrion assured. "Short burn, mere walls of heat, scares horses, blinds men, but leaves stones standing. War is theater. We paint fear, not mass graves." Daenerys studied the map long, eyes distant. "2 questions," she said. "If Euron senses deceit, he may arrive under truce yet ready for battle. How shield the harbor from his scorpions?" Tyrion gestured. Podrick unrolled another sheet depicting floating booms chained with iron netting. Salvaged harbor chains from Astapor, fitted with barges. They force incoming ships to moor where our shore scorpions target masts. None. Second, she continued, if Tywin Lannister learns you now serve me, how soon before he strikes? Tyrion sighed. Sooner than winter's first frost. We must assume ravens already wing west. Yet your greatest shield is distance and rumor. My father will weigh old histories of doomed Valyrian invasions. He remembers the doom swallowed entire armies that sailed too near. He will gather intelligence months before marching. By then, we will own his spy network, courtesy of one captive crow. No. Very well, Daenerys said at last. We proceed. Grey Worm. Ready 200 unsullied for harbor infiltration. Vedshof. Instruct brazen beasts to spread festival tales by dawn. Missandei. Craft proclamations of unity with Iron Isles. Tyrion, she met his gaze. Be my voice at the quays when Euron arrives. You will play herald and jester both. He bowed. As your grace commands. The council dispersed into lamplight corridors, the air buzzing with quiet urgency. Tyrion lingered until only Daenerys remained. She approached, lowering her voice. Your letter confessed treachery woven by your father. I have not yet read it aloud to the council. Should I? He swallowed. If you deem it bolsters trust, yes, but know this, my father's designs no longer guide me. I serve the realm, and you, because I believe a dragon can melt more than iron, it can melt fear itself. A slow breath left her lips. Words, she whispered. Forge hope. We shall see if deeds temper them. Then she was gone, cloak swishing like raven wings. Preparations consumed 3 days. Tyrion oversaw harbor works, his stature lending him invisibility among hammering dockrights, who gawked only when a dwarf barked orders in perfect astapori. He paid them double-shift wages from Tywin's silver chest, trusting honest greed over loyalty. All the while, he corresponded with a masked priestess of R'hllor newly arrived from Volantis, named Lady Malaza. Tywin's own whisper network never reached this one. She revered Daenerys as Azor Ahai reborn. Tyrion promised her an audience with the queen after the festival, if she roused her red brothers to preach union with Kraken sails. She agreed, eyes alight. Euron Greyjoy's sails appeared on the horizon at dawn of green-scale day. Black silk stitched with emerald kraken, salt spray casting mirrors of sunlight that dazzled Marion's watchers. The silence led 15 longships ringed by scorpion ballistae. On the bow, beneath a mast shaped like a screaming face, stood the crow-eyed captain, wearing a cloak of black feathers that glimmered oil blue. Rumor said he'd torn them from ravens killed mid-flight. Tyrion waited upon a platform built above the river gate, clad in a herald's green doublet and golden lion mask, ironic but anonymous. Beside him rang bronze trumpets, brazen beasts below juggled painted eggs, breathing colored smoke. Freedmen families thronged quayside stalls, tasting sugar almond cakes dyed turquoise. Laughter rose where not long past there had been stone throwing. As the silence slowed before the boomnet, Tyrion raised an arm. Trumpets blared. He shouted in common first, then low Valyrian, voice amplified by a horn Missandei rigged with bronze funnels. Welcome Prince Euron of House Greyjoy, blood of the storm god, son of Iron Islands, bearer of the deep song. Today Marine hails a brother of the waves come to honor the mother of dragons. Cheer erupted. Rehearsed, but genuine enough after free cakes and wine. Euron doffed his raven cloak, bowing theatrically. Even across water, Tyrion saw his grin, teeth carved into points like shark fins. The long ships moored where chains guided. Sailors tossed lines. Unsullied, disguised as dockhands climbed aboard carrying amphorae sealed with red wax. Wax. Tyrion watched for any tension, a twitch of suspicion. Instead, Euron welcomed amphorae with flourished words about blood-blessed Myrish vintage. He beckoned a deckhand to pour him a cup on the spot, quaffed deeply, then pitched the goblet overboard. He shouted back to Tyrion, voice booming unnaturally strong. A drink to dragons, lions, and krakens dancing on the graves of slaves. Beneath the lion mask, Tyrion grimaced. Minutes later, the Silence's crew began to slump against rails, cups half empty. Unsullied leapt into sudden motion, grapples on scorpions, lashings on wrists. Euron himself staggered, yet his grin stayed feral. Tyrion saw him sway, then draw a wicked curved dagger from his belt and slash a sailor's throat. Perhaps better to die than be fettered. A hush rippled through the crowd as if some collective instinct sensed violence. Tyrion shouted orders to mummers to strike drums. The festival music resumed, covering screams. Unsullied swarmed Euron. 3 fell to his dagger before a spear butt cracked against his skull. He went down, bound in manacles. The mummers' kazoos wailed comedic cries, and the crowd laughed on, ignorant. By sunset, all Greyjoy vessels flew the 3-headed dragon beside the kidney-shaped kraken, an emblem Missandei designed overnight. The sailors, drugged into stupor, awoke in chains deep within dungeons where no sound escaped. Daenerys held court in a starlit hall draped with red silk. Euron, stripped of armor, knelt before her, hair matted with blood. Tyrion stood to one side with Ser Barristan, who kept hand on sword pommel. Daenerys studied the pirate's face. "You come bearing gifts?" Euron laughed, spittle flecking lip. "A crown of iron and smoke, fire girl. Wear it and sing." She tilted her head. "Where are your scorpions forged? Who aids you in poisoning bolts?" she asked. "Beyond your flames, beneath a sea of swords," he crooned. "Give me your dragons and I'll show you." Tyrion stepped forward. "Your fleet now sails under her banners. Your life depends on speech, Crow. Betray the place, earn mercy. Lie, and we will place you in a cage above the harbor to watch gulls feast." He leaned closer, voice steel. "Hear them already? Their wings beat time." Euron's one blue eye narrowed. The other, black as jet, seemed to drink lamplight. "You think chains tame storms? I have sailed the smoky spiral, tasted dragon dreams. Your queen's fire is but candle compared to the night I bring." He spat, missing Tyrion's boot by an inch. Daenerys rose. "Then dream in darkness." She nodded to Grey Worm, who hauled Euron away. "Feed him to Rhaegal at dawn if he remains mute." Tyrion exhaled. "He will talk," he assured her. "Not by dawn," she murmured. "But talk he must." She moved to a balcony, gazing across Meereen's sleeping roofs where festival lanterns guttered. "And now Yunkai. We seeded rumor," Tyrion said. "Their spies believe you leave Meereen in 2 days. They will strike tonight or never." She nodded, expression unreadable. "If blood must flow, let it end swiftly. Ready your tunnels." That midnight, the first Yunkish scouts crept along the dried irrigation canal beneath Meereen's south wall. Just as Tyrion predicted, they found grates removed, stone cut smooth. An invitation. Tyrion watched from a slit high on the wall, where he'd stationed a row of braziers filled with the diluted wildfire compound. He lifted a signal lantern thrice. Below in the city's empty lanes, brazen braziers flared to life, dancing sheets of indigo flame that hissed but did not explode. Horses reared, men panicked. Unsullied detachments emerged from sewer grates behind. The trap clenched like jaws. Tyrion descended after the first clash to observe prisoner pens. Grey Worm's men corralled 200 Yunkish spearmen who dropped arms quickly under walls of heat. Losses minimal. The compound burned itself out in minutes, leaving singe marks on clay facades but no rubble. Perfect theater. As dawn bled across the plateau, Daenerys rode Drogon over the captured vanguard, Rhaegal and Viserion flanking. She commanded the Yunkish envoy to kneel. Fear-stricken faces obeyed. She then proclaimed amnesty if Yunkai agreed to abolish slave markets within a month, surrender hostages, and pay reparations in grain. Facing dragons and the memory of wildfire walls, they consented without negotiation. Tyrion stood at her side, wind-whipped, watching hope ripple through freedmen ranks like tide across sandbars. He leaned, whispering, "A queen who wins battles without shattering gates writes history in hearts, not ashes." She glanced sidelong. "Credit your calculations. Credit your restraint." That afternoon Tyrion met privately with Ser Barristan in a garden cloister, statues of old Kiskari warrior kings crusted with lichen above. Barristan eyed him with a mixture of new respect and lingering caution. "You gamble with lives like Savas pieces," the knight said. Tyrion shrugged. "Every commander does. I merely see the board from a lower vantage." "Ming?" "Perhaps you see farther," Barristan conceded. He extended a parchment bearing the red wax of Westeros. "A raven arrived. A reply addressed to you from King's Landing. Signed with the lion's head." Tyrion's breath snagged. Tywin. He took the letter, snapped seal, scanned lines. Father's steady hand. "Son. You. Your absence shapes rumors but no body. If alive, reconsider loyalties. Daenerys will never cross the narrow sea. Volantis prepares blockade. Return, and I guarantee pardon. Fail, and you will hang alongside the pale mare corpses. A war of dragons ends in dust. Tywin Lannister." Tyrion folded the letter, slipping it into his sleeve. "He fears what he does not see. Will you answer?" "In due time." He met Barristan's gaze. "When the queen sails, I would value your sword at her flank." The old knight's eyes softened. "My oath is hers alone now. But I warn as friend. The war for Westeros will not be won with pageantry. Cersei will line walls with scorpions thrice the size of Euron's." Tyrion nodded. "Hence the forges we pry from the crow." That evening, Euron broke. Grey Worm's silent vigil invoked no blades. Only darkness, dripping water, and a small cage of ravens hung inches above Euron's head, croaking ceaselessly. On the third hour, the pirate pleaded to make the voices stop. He revealed coordinates of hidden isles where his smiths tested wyvern baubles, and more. A rumor of secret traffic between Casterly Rock and Korth, trading obsidian arrowheads rumored to pierce dragon scale. Tyrion seized on this. Fresh treachery unimagined. Euron was chained inside an iron sarcophagus, set upon a cart in the harbor square, to be shipped upriver to the makeshift forges as forced guide. Daenerys announced that the man who boasted of slaughter would now build instead. His knowledge of scorpions twisted into tools to break scorpions. Weeks passed. Meereen's wounds faded, freedmen markets thrummed with trade. Tyrion's reforms printed copper coins, stamped with a dragon circling broken chains, stabilizing bread prices. A council of 9 freedmen and former wise masters drafted laws abolishing debt bondage, supervised by Missandei and Shevapate. Tyrion wrote daily bulletins for Daenerys to sign, brief, clear, stirring. Literacy schools opened in old fighting pit barracks. Rhaegal learned to draw water from a restored aqueduct, cooling lower districts. The Queen's legend blossomed anew. One humid night, Drogon returned from hunting bearing the carcass of a monstrous gray-scaled eel thick as a horse. He dropped it before the pyramid, roaring triumph. Children gathered, cheering. Daenerys descended in bare feet, laughed like a girl, kissed Drogon's snout. Tyrion watched from a column's shadow, heartwarming and aching. For a flicker, he saw what Westeros might witness. A queen of fire walking among laughing children, while a black dragon bowed. He slipped away to pen another letter to King's Landing. Not to Tywin, but to Jaime. He wrote of mistakes, of dreams of better thrones, of hope that a lion need not devour itself. He ended, "When next we meet, brother, I pray it is across a table, not a battlefield. Yet if battlefield it must be, know that my sword will be words aimed at the rod of our father's reign. Demon." He sealed it with wax bearing no sigil. Only 2 crossed broken chains. Varys' little birds would see it flown. During these weeks, Tyrion also nurtured Podrick's education. The boy mastered Kiskari script, negotiated a saffron shipment, and learned to parry with a short spear from Grey Worm. One twilight, Tyrion found him practicing steps on the terrace. Thrust, twist, block, in deliberate motions. "You'll make a sellsword yet," Tyrion grinned. Podrick wiped sweat. "I don't wish to kill, Lord. Nor do most killers, yet they still kill." Tyrion clapped his shoulder. "But a scribe who can defend his parchment lives longer. Remember that." When the forges in the stepstones fell to a joint strike led by unsullied Marines and Euron's own coerced smiths, Daenerys asked Tyrion to travel westward to oversee seizure, leaving Meereen under Grey Worm and Missandei. Ser Barristan volunteered to accompany. Tyrion felt equal parts pride and terror. He would be thousands of leagues from Meereen's dragons, yet close to Westeros' claws again. Before departure, Daenerys met him in a private library chamber lined with scrolls older than the Seven Kingdoms. She offered him a ring forged from a dragon scale banded by Valyrian steel. No gem, only black flame within metal. "A token of service," she said. "I name you Master of Whispers and Hand in all but title. When I sail, that ring grants you my voice." Tyrion slipped it on, the metal warm as blood. He bowed deep. "I will bend every whisper to your wind." She stepped closer. "You have given me victories without fire. Yet, fire gained me dragons. And to matter war. It also birthed ashes," he whispered. "We balance both." A hush thickened. He saw in her eyes the storm of burden, the loneliness no counsel dispelled. He said, "When you stand on Dragonstow's battlements, do not forget this city's song. Remember the children cheering, not the masters screaming. Let that be the note you hold." She touched his cheek, light as a moth wing. "Go, dwarf. Bring me a fleet unbroken." The voyage to the Stepstones lasted 10 days aboard the captured longship Sea Song, rechristened Hope, in chains. At night, Tyrion and Barristan played Savas beneath lanterns, the old knight revealing surprising guile. They spoke of the Mad King, of Rhaegar's dreams, of Jaime's whispered regrets. Barristan confessed he once almost fled to join Rhaegar's cause at the Trident, an admission heavy as a confession of faith. Tyrion listened, offering wine when words failed. The forges proved smaller than feared, yet devilishly efficient. Nested in a crater island, bellows fueled by volcanic vents, scorpion bolts treated in cauldrons of wyvern gall. Slaves worked naked save for soot. Their overseers wore feathered helms of Valyrian design, Carthene sellswords in Euron's employ. The assault came at dawn. Unsullied arrows felled sentries, freed slaves scalped overseers' feathers, and Euron's smiths surrendered quickly, eager to return home. Tyrion ordered the gall cauldrons dumped into the sea, the scorpion frames dismantled. He kept only the design blueprints, rolled in oilskin, to study weaknesses. In a locked vault beneath the main foundry, they discovered crates of obsidian arrowheads faintly glowing red, the rumored Korth trade. Tyrion handled one shard. It pulsed heat like a living ember. He instructed Barristan to store them in lead-lined chests. A weapon unknown must be studied by maesters of dragonlore at Dragonstone. If Korth had cracked volcanic secrets, better the Queen wield them first. As they sailed back to Meereen, a raven arrived with missive from Missandei. Tywin Lannister dead, poisoned on the privy throne by an unknown hand. Tyrion's heart lurched. For a moment he felt adrift, an anchor cut, freed, yet fatherless again. Barristan clasped his shoulder. "The lion's roar echoes still," he warned through his cubs. Cersei's coronation followed within days. She crowned herself regent queen, dismissing any notion of Tommen's rule. Reports told of wildfire stockpiles beneath King's Landing streets, of a new faith militant, condoning purges of rumored Targaryen sympathizers. Jaime, stripped of command for refusing to forsake his Kingsguard vows, vanished westward with a company of sellswords, sworn to the honor of Brienne of Tarth. The realm teetered on partitions of fear. Tyrion penned letters from the captain's cabin, quill scratching until fingertips cramped. One to Daenerys summarized Tywin's death, the faith militant's rise, and Korth's obsidian plot. Another to his brother expressed grief reluctant but honest. "He was our father, yet he forged us shackles. Ours now to choose whether to wear them as memorial or melt them for bridges." 2 nights later, the Hope in chains docked at Meereen to drums of celebration. Freedmen hailed Tyrion the Olive Fox. Slee, small, yet bearing fruit of peace. Grey Worm smiled, brief but genuine. Missandei embraced Tyrion, tears bright in torches. Yet darkness followed the cheers. Daenerys stood before him inside the throne hall. Her eyes brimmed crimson. "Drogon hasn't returned for 3 days," she murmured. He chased storm clouds east and vanished. Tyrion's pulse quickened. Dragons wander. He will return. She shook her head. No. I feel emptiness, like fire gone cold. He clasped her wrist gently. We will search sky and sea. But for now, we march time's road. Westeros unravels. You must sail before Cersei cements fear into walls. Daenerys stared past him at the obsidian heads Barristan's men carried. These arrows pierce dragon scale, forged by men who fear dragons. Tyrion met her gaze. We make them regret learning. A hush fell as the council gathered again. Tyrion proposed immediate departure within a fortnight. Half the Unsullied, 2 dragons, and ironborn ships refitted with scorpions of their own design. Grey Worm would hold Meereen with local levies under Veghoff. Hisdar offered to remain as hostage, an odd twist of loyalty. Missandei insisted on sailing. So did Podrick, whose eyes blazed at thought of Westeros' green hills again. Daenerys listened, still haunted. She agreed. Dragons abroad draw fewer arrows than dragons perched. She named the fleet the Breaker's Promise. Tyrion, as chief navigator of Whispers, plotted route. Meereen to Korth to Dorne, where rumors said Prince Doran Martell quietly mourned his murdered kin and thirsted for vengeance on Lannisters. Yet before sails unfurled, a final storm loomed. The pale mare plague returned, erupting in the freedmen camps with frantic speed. Children collapsed, mouths foaming, eyes bleeding. Doctors claimed the pestilence mutated, immune to milk of the poppy and vinegar cloth. Daenerys refused to flee a dying people. What queen leaves her children in fever? She asked, voice hoarse. Tyrion devised quarantine sectors, oversaw digging of drainage canals to isolate waste, distributed obsidian-tipped spears among guards. The shards, he theorized, held heat that seared infection on contact. Barristan doubted but conceded. A few spears cut festering limbs, cauterizing wounds instantly. Folk called them demon spears, yet they worked. Slowly infection waned. During these grim weeks, Drogon returned at midnight, landing atop the pyramid with a roar echoing grief and triumph. His talons carried a carcass of a great lion with mane like molten gold. An omen, some whispered, that Lannister rule would fall. Daenerys wept, embracing her dragon's scorched hide. Tyrion saw on the lion's ragged corpse a prophecy burning. Moonrise later found Tyrion alone on a balcony overlooking Meereen. Tywin's ring on finger, dragon scale ring on other. 2 fathers, 2 worlds. He sipped dark wine, murmuring, farewell, lion shadow. Welcome, dragon dawn. Nay? Below, the harbor hummed with last-minute repairs. Sails unfurled black and red. The Breaker's Promise would sail on the morrow. Tyrion straightened, setting goblet aside. He turned to collect maps, quills, and froze. Varys stood in the archway, robes the color of midnight silk, face as placid as a lake. My lord Tyrion, he breathed, tone gentle, the realm grows stranger by the hour. Tyrion's smile curved wry. Spider, I thought you scuttled west. West and east both. Varys stepped in, candlelight glimmering on his bald scalp. I bring tidings, Aegon lives. The boy they called Griff, hidden in Essos these years. The Golden Company sails to Storm's End to claim your sister's throne under a new banner of black dragon, red wing. Tyrion's lips parted. Another dragon claimant? Indeed, and one with the backing of half the free cities. War will rage long before your queen arrives. Tyrion inhaled. Then we must sail sooner still. Varys smiled thin. I have seats for your voyage, my little birds in Westeros. Grow restless for song. But know this, if Aegon reaches King's Landing first, prophecy may fracture. Dragons against dragons, while the realm burns. Oh. Tyrion glanced to the dark sky, where Viserion's pale shape spiraled like a ghost. Let it be. Fire refines steel. Let the realm forge itself anew. Our task, ensure the right steel remains. Varys bowed. May your whispers find eager ears, my lord. As night wore on, Tyrion drafted new orders: intercept Golden Company's route, entice them with offers of Dragon Alliance in Dorne, sow mistrust between Aegon and Cersei. He slept not at all. Yet dawn found him clear-eyed upon the deck of the flagship Dragon's Hymn. The wind carried salt, promise, and the faintest whiff of smoke blown from a far future. Daenerys stood at prow, clad in crimson cloak, Drogon circling overhead. She raised her hand to the city she'd freed twice, once with fire, once with restraint. Horns sounded. Lines cast off. The fleet lumbered into the Gulf, sails billowing red and black, crowned by kraken prows under new colors. Tyrion gripped rail as Meereen's silhouette shrank against sunrise. Podrick stood beside him, excitement shining. Barristan polished sword. Varys whispered to ravens caged near the stern. Ahead, across leagues of envy and dream, lay Westeros, a land of iron thrones, wildfire tunnels and hearts, yet unbroken. Tyrion felt the dragon scale ring warm, and beneath it his father's signet coal. One would guide whispers, the other remind him chains still rattled in men's souls. Between them, perhaps, he could strike a music the world had never heard. He raised a spyglass toward distant horizons, searching, calculating, savoring the swell of the deck beneath him. The sea breathed, the sails snapped, and the first notes of a new symphony of fire and whisper rose with the gulls' cries. In the end, he reflected, the game was never about thrones, or fathers, or even dragons. It was about the stories men believed. And Tyrion Lannister, dwarf of many masks, intended to script the greatest story of all. A tale where chains shattered, wolves and lions dined together, and children cheered as dragons soared without fear of arrows. Whether the story bled across parchment or battlefield depended on every word he would speak from this point onward. He smiled into the wind and began to rehearse.